Seniors home versus zombies. Could this be the ultimate survival bunker? Today we're diving into a wild topic, surviving a zombie apocalypse in a seniors home. We're talking walkers, wheelchairs, and whether those early bird specials could be the key to outlasting the undead. Could a retirement community actually be the ultimate zombie bunker? We're gonna break down all the pros and cons, so stick around. This is gonna be epic. Make sure you're subscribed and hit that notification bell. Let's get started. All right, first up, let's talk about what these places already have going for them. Think about it. Generators for power outages? Check. Emergency water supplies? Double check. These places are practically designed for disaster preparedness. Security systems, locked doors, the whole 9 yards. We're talking potential fortress levels of protection against a horde of hungry zombies. Next up, let's talk about the residents and staff. You've got a whole community of people who are used to looking out for each other, working together, and following a routine. Imagine Grandma Betty with her knitting needles taking down zombies, or Mr. Johnson from accounting using his walker as a battering ram. These seniors have seen it all, and they're not afraid to fight for survival. Plus, you've got the staff nurses, cooks, maintenance workers, people with practical skills who could be invaluable in a crisis. This is starting to sound like a zombie survival dream team. Now let's talk supplies. Senior homes have stockpiles of food, water, medicine, and other essentials on hand at all times. It's like a prepper's paradise just waiting to be raided. By us, the survivors, not the zombies. Plus, think about the medications. We're talking painkillers, antibiotics, all the good stuff you'd want in a post-apocalyptic world. This is starting to look like a pretty sweet setup. Fort Knox who? The security advantage. Let's not forget about security. Senior homes are designed with safety in mind. Locked doors, security cameras, maybe even a grumpy security guard named Carl, who's secretly a zombie-slaying expert. These features could be a lifesaver when you're trying to keep a horde of brain eaters at bay. Home sweet zombie-free home, the comfort factor. Now let's talk about the mental aspect of surviving a zombie apocalypse. Being in a familiar, comfortable environment could make a huge difference in your mental state. Imagine being surrounded by familiar faces, routines, and even your own belongings. It's like a little slice of normalcy in a world gone mad. Medics on site, the healthcare advantage. Another huge advantage, medical care. Senior homes have nurses, doctors on call, and maybe even a pharmacy on site. Imagine getting bitten by a zombie and instead of panicking, you just stroll down the hall to the nurse's station and say, "Hey, can I get some ointment for this bite?" Isolation station, keeping the undead at bay. Senior homes, by their nature, are somewhat isolated from the outside world. They have controlled access, limited visitors, and a generally slower pace of life. This could be a huge advantage in a zombie apocalypse, as it limits your exposure to the infected hordes. Fewer people coming and going means fewer chances of letting a zombie slip through the cracks. It's like a self-imposed quarantine zone, but with better snacks and more bingo. Specialized care, no one gets left behind. Many senior homes have residents with mobility issues, chronic illnesses, or other special needs. In a zombie apocalypse, these individuals would be especially vulnerable. But here's the thing, senior homes are already equipped to handle these needs. They have ramps, accessible bathrooms, and staff trained to provide specialized care. No one gets left behind in this zombie survival plan. We're talking about a community that values compassion, support, and inclusivity. Escape plan activated. Evacuation procedures to the rescue. Senior homes often have detailed evacuation plans in place for emergencies. These plans include designated escape routes, transportation arrangements, and procedures for accounting for all residents. In a zombie apocalypse, having a pre-existing evacuation plan could mean the difference between life and death. Imagine this, the zombie horde is approaching, sirens are blaring, but there's no panic here. We've got our escape route mapped out. Slow and steady wins the race against zombies. Could being slow-moving actually be an advantage in a zombie apocalypse? Think about it. Zombies are notoriously slow and lumbering. Now imagine a group of seniors armed with walkers, canes, and a whole lot of attitude, moving at a pace that would make a snail look like Usain Bolt. The zombies wouldn't even know what hit them. It's time to address the potential downsides of seeking refuge in a senior home during a zombie apocalypse. Many seniors face physical limitations, health conditions, or cognitive decline that could make them more vulnerable in a crisis. Evacuating quickly, engaging in physical confrontations, or even just enduring the harsh realities of a post-apocalyptic world could be incredibly challenging for some residents. We can't sugarcoat the fact that a zombie apocalypse would be incredibly difficult for everyone, especially those with pre-existing vulnerabilities. The Hunger Games, when resources run dry. While senior homes do have stockpiles, these are finite. What happens when the canned goods run out? When the medication expires? When the generator runs out of fuel? Suddenly, that comfortable retirement community starts to feel a lot more like a pressure cooker. We're talking about the potential for conflict, desperation, and some tough choices. Do we ration the remaining supplies? Do we risk a supply run into zombie-infested territory? These are the kinds of dilemmas that could turn a seemingly safe haven into a battleground for survival. Let's not forget about security. While senior homes have some security measures in place, they're not fortresses. A determined horde of zombies could easily overwhelm locked doors, break through windows, or exploit weaknesses in the perimeter. We're talking about the potential for a full-blown zombie invasion. And things could get ugly fast. Imagine zombies crashing through the bingo night, interrupting the shuffleboard tournament, or worse, getting into the pudding cups. Remember how we talked about isolation being a good thing? Well, it can also be a double-edged sword. While being isolated from the outside world might protect you from zombies, it can also lead to feelings of loneliness, boredom, and even depression. Imagine being stuck inside the same building day after day with limited social interaction and nothing but reruns of Matlock to keep you entertained. Let's talk about medical care again, but this time, let's get real. While having nurses and doctors on site is a huge advantage, they're not miracle workers. They can't regrow limbs, cure the zombie virus, or perform open-heart surgery with a spork and a prayer. What happens when someone gets a serious injury, or contracts a deadly illness unrelated to the zombie plague? Suddenly, that on-site medical staff doesn't seem so reassuring anymore. Trapped, the mobility challenge. For seniors with mobility issues, navigating a zombie-infested world would be incredibly challenging, if not impossible. Evacuating quickly, climbing stairs, or even just moving out of the way of a shambling zombie could be insurmountable obstacles. It's a heartbreaking thought, and one that highlights the importance of having a solid plan for assisting those with mobility limitations. We can't just leave Grandma Betty behind because she can't outrun a zombie horde. The burden of care dependency in a crisis. Many seniors rely on others for assistance with daily tasks such as bathing, dressing, or even just getting around. In a zombie apocalypse, this dependency could become a liability. Who takes care of the caregivers when they're exhausted, overwhelmed, or even injured? It's a heavy burden to bear, and one that could lead to burnout, resentment, or even neglect. Remember those escape routes we talked about? Well, they're not always as straightforward as they seem. Senior homes often have limited exits, long hallways, and complex layouts that could easily become death traps in a zombie invasion. Imagine a horde of zombies flooding the main corridor, cutting off access to the only exit. It's a recipe for disaster, and one that highlights the importance of having multiple escape routes, clear signage, and a plan for assisting those who might need help navigating the chaos. Here's a chilling thought. In a zombie apocalypse, a senior home full of supplies, medication, and potentially vulnerable individuals could become a prime target for raiders. We're not just talking about zombies here, but other survivors desperate for resources and willing to do whatever it takes to get them. Imagine a group of heavily armed scavengers, their eyes gleaming with greed, surrounding the senior home, demanding entry. It's a scenario straight out of The Walking Dead, and one that highlights the importance of having a plan for defending yourself and your community. Finally, let's talk about the long game. Senior homes are designed for, well, senior living. They're not designed for long-term survival in a post-apocalyptic wasteland. What happens when the power grid goes down permanently, when the water supply runs dry, when the outside world becomes a distant memory? We're talking about the need for sustainable living practices, self-sufficiency, and a whole lot of ingenuity. It's a daunting task, but one that we need to start thinking about now, before it's too late. So there you have it, the pros and cons of taking shelter in a senior's care home during a zombie apocalypse. We've seen the potential benefits, the existing infrastructure, the sense of community, the stockpiles of resources, but we've also seen the potential risks, the vulnerability of the residents, the limitations of the facilities, the ever-present threat of the undead, and the not-so-undead raiders. What do you think? Would you take your chances in a senior home during a zombie apocalypse? Let us know in the comments below, and don't forget to like and subscribe for more epic discussion.